Hey friends, and welcome to the obligatory Earth Day video. But this year I wanted to share with you some of my monthly zero waste habits. As part of my zero waste habits series, I've done my day ones, daily ones, I've done my weekly ones. If you're interested, I'll link those in the description below. And these swaps and habits are things that I truly believe make a huge impact not only in my life, but on the environment and the planet as a whole. Of course, I'm a huge proponent of system change and collective action, but I believe that individual action and system change together make a perfect combination. Because for me, as I'm sure for many of you, Earth Day is every day, but we can use this as a way to kind of re-inspire ourselves, re-motivate, and help beginners who are slightly interested to kind of push them in the right direction gently and nicely and not judgmentally. But it's just a great way and great opportunity for all of us. I will be mentioning a few brands and organizations at the beginning of this video that I like to support, and then I'm going to be moving into some more practical things in the style of my other kind of videos or the zero waste habits that I do each month, so bear that in mind. And of course, feel free as always to skip along the timestamps as you see fit. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing if you like my content. It really supports my channel. Let's get into it. So even though I haven't stepped on a plane in over a year, and in my opinion have been fairly climate neutral in terms of my purchasing and things like that, just the fact that I live in the global north, my carbon footprint is going to be much higher than those living in the global south. And yet we feel the least effects of climate change. And this is just one of the reasons why I support organizations, for example, like GoClimate, whose purpose is to fight the climate crisis by reducing greenhouse gas emissions, whilst, and in my opinion most importantly, centering climate justice and operating with 100% transparency. They are the only carbon offsetting company that I endorse, and it really is due to their intersectional approach to climate change, to climate justice, and their commitment to financing effective climate change projects that build a foundation for a sustainable future. As someone who is privileged enough to have the choice to make changes, this is something I do monthly just to help reduce my everyday emissions. This absolutely does not give me a free pass to up those carbon intensive activities or habits. It's just a simple way of combining individual action with collective action and system change, as I mentioned earlier. And GoClimate have actually engineered this really cool carbon footprint calculator if you just want to go and check it out. And then you can compare your individual footprint to the goal, which is 2.5 tons per year by 2030. It's just a neat way to kind of see where we're at and where we need to get to. And if you are interested, absolutely no pressure, you can use the referral code GoImmy in the description to get a free month of offsetting. At the beginning of each month, I've started spending a little bit of time cleaning my jewellery and my watch. I always try to stress the importance of taking care of our items, showing them respect by tending to their needs. I know this makes it sound like they're alive, but when we value our items and take care of them, they last and last and last. My NordGreen watch is the first watch that I've thought is smart and really warranted taking care of. I've mentioned this brand a few times before, and it's because I love my watch. And it's something I genuinely use every single day, but I also love what the brand stands for. When we do buy new, it is so important that we choose brands and companies that really align with our values, but also actually, bother to give back. From their sustainable packaging made from upcycled plastic bottles and FSC certified cartons, to carbon neutral shipping, to their giving back program, where they donate to 3 global NGOs, NordGreen are a responsible brand. They've even permanently reduced the price of their vegan straps to encourage consumers to try and use more vegan products. This month, they're also encouraging their team to take on 3 challenges, which I think is so important because not only are they promoting sustainable practices, they're also trying to change or create a culture within the actual company itself of sustainability, which is so important if we're going to get that kind of connection between what we do, what we buy, and who we are and the values that we have. If you're interested and you actually need a watch, then feel free to check out NordGreen in the description below, and you can use the code Immy to get quite a decent discount. I'm a huge believer in community action and community organisations, and one of the things that I have loved seeing over lockdown in particular is there are loads of allotments around where my parents live and also where I live in London, and loads of people have been coming together and actually teaching one another how to garden, teaching one another how to grow their own food and become more self-sufficient, which I think it's been such a huge priority for people over the last year, considering how bare the supermarket shelves were and things like that, and some some shops, like zero waste shops, had to close for a while because of issues with COVID. And I have absolutely loved seeing communities coming together and learning from one another. However, for some, like me, who's not part of an allotment, it has been really difficult to do some of the in-person community action that I usually like to do over the past year, but there are some things that I have been able to do. So the last organisation in this video that I want to talk about is Treedom. What happens is we buy trees from them, and then they redistribute those funds to small-scale farmers in their startup phase, buying local trees and in alignment with what the farmer actually wants to grow, and then giving them a stable income before the harvest, those rich harvests of cacao and coffee are then available to sell. Having startup capital is absolutely essential for small-scale farmers, because then it means that they are not going to fall into the traps of big business. And the most important thing is that it ensures farmers still have self-sovereignty going forwards, not only over their practices, but over their land and their wages. Now, the reason why I support Treedom is because this is a far cry from the typical saviorism that we see, which is actually building a dependence on that aid. However, this is specifically intended to create self-sovereignty, which is very important. Buying trees from Treedom is just a first way to really help redistribute some of our wealth in a sort of indirect/direct way. Planting a tree is an action with lasting, far-reaching benefits, a small gesture that makes a big difference on the lives of smallholder farmers and on the environment. So if you're interested in buying a tree and supporting local farmers, you can use the code PLANTWITHIMMY to buy one and get one free. Okay, moving beyond organisations. Each month, I sterilise my menstrual cup and also my period underwear. Now, in my weekly habits, I mentioned my period underwear, so I'm not going to go over that again. But one thing I like to do is make sure I'm prepared, because sometimes my period likes to sneak up on me. I should get one of those tracking apps. If you have one of those and you recommend it, please let me know in the comments, because sometimes it sneaks up on me and I'm like, what? I'm not ready. So I like to be ready. I like to sterilise my menstrual cup for about 3 to 4 minutes each month. And as I said, with my period underwear, I clean that and I wash that by hand. When we wash things by hand and then we dry things, air dry, in the warmer months, I dry them outside, and in the cooler months, of course, inside. But air drying and hand washing can really help prolong the life of our clothes, especially things that are delicate or have a little bit more care that's needed for them. Then it can be such a great thing. Of course, if you're not comfortable with hand washing your period underwear, or you just don't find it gets them clean enough, put them in the washing machine, but just make sure you put them on cold on 30. This is the most eco-friendly way of doing it, and also the most efficient way to keep them nice and safe. But always air dry things, especially also just with like gym exercise gear, because of what it's made from. You should always also hang dry that stuff too. Just another tip. Fermenting and pickling has become a staple in my monthly zero waste habits. You may have seen in some of my previous videos that I like to make things like sauerkraut and apple cider vinegar when the seasons permit, and more recently, after my foraging course, I'm starting to look more into wild sauerkraut ferments, even pickling wild garlic buds. I think that would be so cool. This is such a fun way to experiment with food and flavours and learn what does and doesn't go together, and it's just a simple and easy storage method that can last for months and months and months. I also find that it is a great way to use up any vegetables that might be going off or going soft, or any herbs that you have that are slightly turning. You can just bung them in a pickle, in a sauerkraut, and watch the magic happen. So the next thing is monthly courses. Now, this is something I've very much been starting to do recently. I do talk about learning and stuff like that a lot, but this is specifically led by someone or a professional or an expert. And the intention is to improve upon skills that either I already have or I really want to obtain. Like recently I went on that foraging workshop. These are quite expensive though, so I only tend to do one in person every few months, or I will going forward. And then in the in-between months, I'll look online to find either a free course or something that's more affordable that I can just do digitally. And one of the things I've been particularly interested in is learning how to mend my clothes. And that's because I think it's a really great skill. 2, it prevents us from, throwing away things because we think that it's come to the end of its life, and that's just a really great sustainable practice to get into. But also mending clothes is really tricky, and I'm actually not very good at it. So I really want to learn so much more about how we can go about doing that in a better way. So it looks like a good job, and also, making it more fun and easy, so we're increasing the likelihood of me actually doing it. One thing that has become so apparent, obviously to me already, but just learning how hard it is to mend clothes gives me so much more respect than I already had for garment workers and people who create our clothes in the first place. And it's just one of the reasons why garment workers should be paid a fair wage, because they're so highly skilled and the job that they're doing is beyond our, capabilities for most of us. So that's just one thing. Now the next thing is I put some money into my pension each month. I was so happy to see how interested you were in my last, I think my 25 weekly zero waste swaps video, or habits, sorry, where I mentioned that I used a stocks and shares ISA and I put a little bit of money into that. It's an ethical and socially responsible one. And where our money goes is so important. And pensions is something that everyone finds very boring. People start way too late. And it's just one of the most fundamental things that we can do as an individual to help prevent funding climate change. And I say this because over £3 trillion in the UK alone is invested through our pensions. And over 90% of that is actually invested in things that are probably counter to a lot of our values. For example, weapons, tobacco, gambling, and fossil fuels. And if we just think about £3 trillion and what that could actually achieve if that was invested into socially responsible things. And that is just in the UK alone, and we're little. Imagine how much money is invested into pensions in the US, for example, in Australia, for example. You've got to think about countries that are absolutely massive and what we can do. The first step, if you're unsure, is to talk to your employer if you're auto-enrolled, or talk to your pension provider and find out exactly where your money is being invested. It is actually surprisingly easy to change pension providers, but as I'm not a financial advisor, if you're finding it difficult, you have a lot of money already in there, or you're just not sure and you can afford to pay for one, then I would suggest talking to a financial advisor about this. But a really great website that you can try is Make Money Matters. I think they're a people-powered movement trying to make pensions more socially responsible and ethical. So if you're interested, I would definitely check them out, because I'm still fairly new to the whole pension thing. But as I said, £3 trillion in the UK alone, 90% of which is invested into things that we don't like. So just bear that in mind. About 2 years ago, I started implementing this one in, one out rule because I wanted to become a lot more minimalist, and I also wanted to just take stock of why I wanted things and did I really need them and things like that. So each month I now create a monthly wish list. And what happens is if I want something throughout the month, I'll write it down. And then when I come to the end of the month, I'll take a look at that monthly wish list and think, do I really need these things? Or can I put the cost of those items towards something else, like moving this year, or to an adventure or a tangible experience rather than a physical item. I also consider whether I have enough money in my emergency fund. This is something I started creating a couple of years ago now, because last year during the pandemic, not only my oven broke, but also my fridge broke, and I tried to have them repaired, but they were just beyond repair. So I had to replace those, and those are large items that are really expensive, and I wouldn't have been able to just sort of pay for those. So I was so happy that I had that emergency fund. And that's what I also consider. Is my emergency fund at a level that makes me feel safe? And if it's not, then I shouldn't be buying this item that is slightly unnecessary for my life. So instead I'll put the money in there, or I just won't spend the money at all. And finally, each month I set aside a weekend to read an entire book on climate change or sustainability. Now I know this might seem like overkill, but I just absolutely love being completely absorbed in a book, and especially something like on sustainability or climate change. I just come away feeling so motivated, so refreshed, so inspired, and also just checking my privilege, checking what I have been doing and have I strayed too far from the message that I'm trying to put out online, the trying to better myself and the person that I want to become. And the 3 books that I have on my list for the next few months, let me just get them. Okay, so first off we have White Skin, Black Fuel by Andreas Malm and the Zetkin Collective. On the danger of fossil fascism. This is going to be so good. It says, in the first study of the far right's role in the climate crisis, White Skin, Black Fuel presents an eye-opening sweep of a novel political constellation, revealing its deep historical roots. Fossil fuel technology were born and steeped in racism. No one loved them more passionately than the classical fascists. Now right-wing forces have risen to the surface, some professing to have the solution, closing borders to save the nation as the climate breaks down. Epic and riveting, White Skin, Black Fuel traces a future of political fronts that can only heat up. Now this is something I certainly need to learn about, so I'm so excited to get into that. The next one is How to Blow Up a Pipeline by Andreas Malm, another one. And it's Naomi Klein writes on the back, one of the most original thinkers on the subject. And then David Wallace Wells, who wrote Uninhabitable Earth, says, if a livable world requires an all-over transformation, where and when and how do we start? Perhaps with this book, a provocative manifesto from the pioneering theorists of the climate age. Whew. And it's quite short as well, this one. And then the last one is Planet on Fire, a manifesto for the age of environmental breakdown by Mathew and Laurie Layboyrn-Langton. A powerful, clear vision, don't miss this book. This clear and incisive book shows how climate breakdown is intimately linked to all the overlapping crises humanity faces and maps a route to an equal and sustainable world. So those are the 3 books. I'll put them in the description below in case you're interested. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any monthly habits that you would love to share, I would love some more inspiration. I've been just absolutely loving getting fully into my zero waste habits again, resetting it and becoming just trying to be better. Please enjoy Earth Day. Please get outside if possible, get out into nature and enjoy it. And remember that Earth Day is every day, but today we can just use this as an example to inspire friends, family, everyone else on social media, whatever, to try and get involved in some way to reduce our impact, collective action, system change the world. So let's move forward in a more climate positive way. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye.